Everybody, this is going to be 14.2 America Debates Involvement. We're going to start with a quote from Charles Lindbergh, who was a member of a group called America First back before World War II. He said, "We are assembled here tonight because we believe in an independent destiny for America. Such a destiny does not mean that we will build a wall around our country and isolate ourselves from contact with the rest of the world. But it does mean that the future of America will not be tied to those eternal wars in Europe." I think this goes a long way to show the fear of getting involved that America had for a good long time before World War II began for us. So, our objectives, we're going to understand the early years of World War II in Europe, talk about Roosevelt's foreign trade during this time, or foreign policies in the 1930s, and the debate between intervention and isolation. And we're going to explain how the United States became more involved in World War II. So let's look at Roosevelt first. The brutality of what Japan did in China and the spread of fascism worried a lot of Americans. Not all. There were some who actually said, yes, we're not pleased with what they're doing, but they're keeping the communists out. Roosevelt, however, spoke out against Japan. He suggested an informal alliance between the democratic countries of the world, but he did not say we're going to get involved. So this is Roosevelt giving a famous speech called his quarantine speech, where he said, "We are determined to keep out of war, yet we cannot ensure ourselves haunts the disastrous effects of the war and the dangers of involvement." He was not in favor of getting involved. So let's look at war breaking out in Europe during this time. Uh, Harsh words and this whole appeasement attitude was just allowing Germany and Japan to do what they felt like they wanted to do at the time. And so they started to, or kept going and taking over foreign nations. In 1939, both Hitler and Stalin signed a pact agreeing that they were not going to attack each other. So this was a non aggression pact between Germany and Russia. As we're going to see, neither side fully trusted the other side to, obey that idea, but they both said that they would follow it. And so finally, on September 1st, 1939, Hitler invaded Poland. And that was the last straw. England and France, who were allied with Poland, had been telling them, you better not try it, and he did. And so on September 1st, 1939, World War II began. So here is Hitler and Stalin getting married to each other and saying, I wonder how long that honeymoon will last in 1939. And here is a guy selling newspapers talking about the official start of the war. Now, Hitler used a lot of fast attacks during the war, what are known as blitzkrieg or lightning wars. He basically would have his giant army pile drive into a country and basically take it over before there could be a massive resistance to his takeover. He did this in Poland. Stalin also attacked Poland, and so Hitler and Stalin split it. This was part of their secret agreement together. After this, both the Axis and the Allies started to mobilize for war, the Allies being France and England, the Axis being Germany and Japan. In May, Hitler went through the Netherlands and Belgium and Luxembourg. He was headed for France. In France, most people thought that the French would be able to slow him down or stop him even, that it would take years to beat France. It took Hitler 35 days. English troops who were in France were almost entirely captured and would have been entirely captured if it wasn't for a last-ditch rescue of English ships at the French port of Dunkirk. It saved over 300,000 British soldiers. The Prime Minister Winston Churchill called this saving a miracle. However, France was conquered by the Nazis by 1940. So here's Winston Churchill. He was from 1874 to 1965, born in England. He was an author and a historian and a member of Parliament, a former Sea Lord during World War I, a Lord of the Admiralty, and he was Prime Minister during World War II. He was also half American. His mother was the daughter of a wealthy American businessman during this time. And he fully expected to land on Normandy Beach on D-Day in 1943. The king had to stop him and say, no, you are not allowed to do this. It's a terrible idea. I think I meant 44. Anyway, so here are British soldiers escaping in Dunkirk. If you've never seen the movie Dunkirk is really good. Anyway, here is Hitler in Paris as well. Now, after France, Hitler looked to England. England was his next target. However, England was able to defend itself partially by the fact that they were an island. Um, Hitler was not able to attack them by boat and by foot, at least not yet, so he instead attacked them by air, bombing major cities, causing lots of damage and thousands of deaths during this time. Hitler decided it was not time to attack Britain quite yet, though. Here's a street in London after the bombing. Now let's look at American reactions. So Hitler thought that America would get into the game. There's a famous part of his speech that he gave after Dunkirk, the whole "we shall fight in the beaches, we shall fight in the landing grounds, we shall fight, we shall fight, we shall fight." And he said, even if we are defeated, I'm paraphrasing here, we will keep going until the new world across the sea comes to the aid of the old. And basically he meant America is going to get in on this one day. However, at the time, we were divided. World War I had been a tragedy with over 100,000 men killed. The Great Depression was still hurting America in a large way, and this made America hesitant, although Franklin Roosevelt wanted to get in the war. Congress kept passing what are called neutrality acts throughout the 1930s, basically saying we are not going to get involved. We are not going to send guns or ships to any warring nations, friend or foe. Finally, Roosevelt passed the Neutrality Act of 39, where it said, okay, we're going to start sending weapons to some countries as long as they can pay cash for them. We only sold to the Allies, and that made a lot of people upset, especially Germany and Japan. People were suddenly worried that Germany and Japan might attack us. Many Americans are also still advocating for isolationism. Guys like Lindbergh, who we saw at the beginning, advocating for America first. There's a cartoon right here, The Only Way We Can Save Her, where we see Europe is in flames and democracy is in tatters. And she's telling Uncle Sam, stay out for my sake as well as your own. And here is an anti-America First cartoon. Here's again another Dr. Seuss one where Adolf the Wolf, the America First lady, is saying, and the wolf chewed up the children and spit out their bones, but these were foreign children, and it really didn't matter. Adolf Hitler, not Dr. Seuss, not a fan of Hitler. Anyway, so more and more people started to listen to the Battle of Britain on their radios. They were American correspondents over there, and they started to support the keep calm and carry on spirit of the Brits. And so Congress set up the draft again, realizing there's a good chance we're about to get involved in a war. And Roosevelt began selling weapons to Britain with the idea that they would give them back at the end of the war. This is called the Lend-Lease plan. It was ridiculous. We never expected to get these guns back, but that was his promise at least. And people approved enough to give FDR a third term, an unprecedented third term. He was doing what Washington did not do, and that's a first right there. Now let's look at America moving closer. After getting reelected, Roosevelt started to focus more on getting involved. He started to, like I said, loan weapons to Great Britain with the promise that they'd give them back eventually. This is called the Lend-Lease Act, but it was pretty obvious that he was arming Great Britain. And Roosevelt and Churchill also met during this time and decided that after the war was over, there would be a further push for democracy, which sent word to fascist nations and to militaristic Japan that we were not on their side. So here are Roosevelt and Churchill in August of 1941. This is 4 months before Pearl Harbor, and we are going to get to Pearl Harbor in our next section.